Hello, Marcy.
Hi, Rick. Nice to meet you.
Good to physically, yes, or see you.
See you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, wonderful. You setting up the meeting, or are we all good to go?
We are just, and there, oh, we have
Okay.
got another. We're
I've
waiting
got,
for Jeremy.
okay, great. Well, in the meantime, here's two people from my office I want to get in on the team. It's James over there
Hey team, how's everybody doing?
James.
and Larissa.
Good morning.
Hi, Larissa. We're just waiting for Jeremy, who's the CEO of our local development corporation. But I'm Marcy. I'm the marketing and business development director, and this is my colleague Phil.
Hey,
Hi there,
Phil.
how's everybody doing?
Wonderful.
Marcy, I just want to let you know, I talked to Jeremy. He was meeting with the superintendent in Saranac Lake. So he may not be joining us, and if he does, he may be a little late.
Okay, well then we can get started.
Okay.
Terrific. So what's been going on?
Yeah. So we've had an interesting start and stall given the current state of things, and just had to kind of reassess in order to recruit some property owners to get on board. But we've done that. We sent an outreach letter. I just want to give you guys some background of what we've already done, see how it compares or to some other locations that you've worked with. We sent a letter to how many properties, Phil? Well, in our target area.
It was I want to say 58 or 59, something like that.
And so far we've come back with, I think 5 is our total, unless we've recruited another one.
Five that would actually be suitable, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I think we had 7 applications, if you will, but 2 of them aren't really viable. So we have 5, which is under our target number, which I think we wanted 6 or 7 possibly, which is why I asked you, Rick, how much an additional study would be. But it's nice because they are in a concentrated area, so that'll make
Impact.
Exactly, yeah, and certainly narrowing down that target area for future Main Street renovation grant. So we wanted to, now that we have these 5 properties, our next steps are to coordinate with you guys an ideal time to come up to do the visits with the property owners, but also meet with the village board at large and us. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mostly wanted to chat today to listen and just get up to speed, because it's been an unusual year, to say the least. And also, last time you and I spoke, you were at the beginning of the process of pulling things together, of polling all of the owners, of kind of gathering up the prospects. And so it seemed to make sense to find out not just the level of demand, but the specific projects that were likely to emerge out of it, whether they were going to be predominantly facade studies, recommendations as was outlined in the whole RFP, or if sometimes, we do end up, we're pretty flexible. So sometimes there's more in-depth work. I mean, a New York Main Street grant that hopefully follows, if not, other funding sources can also support more in-depth renovation work, upper floors, commercial spaces. Mm-hmm. So sometimes through this grant, we're involved in those. They're much more time intensive. We get in there, we have to measure and draw floor plans, look at structural situations, do assessments, come up with concepts, do code work, do feasibility work. And so sometimes we, can do more facades if we're not doing anything like that, or we can drop in a more in-depth, what we call a building reuse analysis.
Yep.
And that, depending on the building, that can be anywhere from, more complex to much, much more complex. It's just in terms of the time involved. And likewise, the design guidelines can be, we've done design guidelines, which were the entire New York Main Street TA grant was just producing design guidelines. And they're intense and they can be very, very specific, very detailed. And then sometimes we've done design guidelines which kind of fit the budget that is left after we've been asked to focus more of our time on specific properties. And so we do a simpler version of design guidelines. And so we have flexibility. Our goal is to make sure you have the tools that you need coming out of this so that the owners who are participating have a clear vision for their properties. They have a roadmap for at least one feasible path for their building, a sense of one possible budget for that so that they can start to plan accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
For funding on their behalf, if that's the next step. And then the design guidelines, of course, are really a tool for everybody, for the whole community, for those who are participating now, for those who may participate later, but they set up some ground rules. They establish a design language which is built off of what's authentic and specific about Malone. They can provide ideas. They can be almost like a lookbook and be very inspirational for your owners so that they can hopefully see what's possible and not just what's there now. And so that's another tool in your toolkit to help you with the next step. So those are all the moving parts, and we can be adaptable. And that's why, even though we have a scope that that you've bought and paid for, so to speak, that says specifically what we're going to do with the workshop and the five plus facades and the guidelines. But I just wanted you to understand that if things have evolved and there's this amazing target building that could have upper floor residential and the owner is ready to spend $500,000, if they had a vision for what that could be and understood that it was viable, and you wanted to redirect our energy into that, we could figure out a way to reallocate our time to fit something like that into.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know that we are, adaptable. I think as it stands right now, fortunately and unfortunately, we have, because our response was quite limited, we certainly had hoped to be on the other side of that and get more than less, but we were looking at the 5 facade studies. And then we will have some wiggle room, right? I know you and I talked about what we could do and what you've done for other communities with that. If we're only doing 5, you can certainly look at those properties. We'll send you the addresses and their applications even. Maybe one of them can involve more work, or maybe there's something that we can add to the full scope, whether it's the guidelines or we got somebody else. What we can do from there, basically. So in terms of next steps and getting you guys out here, what do you need from us, aside from obviously addresses, contact information?
That kind of dossier that we talked about of the properties. So if you've settled, as much as we can get, obviously contact information, we'd love to reach out in advance. Sometimes, the person in your position will help us logistically arrange a day or however much time we need to kind of get there, meet people, document things, and so on. And then sometimes it'll be a combination, and we'll do the direct outreach and have some of those conversations up front. I wanted to kind of hear today where you were at, and then figure out how to allocate our time and pace out our visits to make the most sense.
Do you have a week or a few days or anything that you'd like to toss our way to see if we can in advance try to make sure that people are available, including our village board?
Sure. So the village board would call a special meeting,
I'm not
essentially.
No, I'm saying they could.
Good.
You know, and maybe the right thing to do is ask them if they'd want to tack it on to one of their existing meetings, depending on your availability. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is what your schedule might look like.
And I guess another question is, would that be part of the intake? Would be kind of that would be a listening session with the village board to kind of consider them as key stakeholders regarding input for a vision for Malone. So we would want to do that early on rather than have that meeting be kind of a show and tell of some draft deliverables.
Sure, that would come after. Yeah, we were basing this on the bullet point with the public design workshop.
Right. And so, and again, that's where I didn't know if that's the bones, that's the structure we can follow or we can adapt. So if you'd rather shift that to a different point and use that as more of a conversation, like let's say we had draft design guidelines and we wanted input on those, that's a different way of engaging stakeholders. They can actually see proposals for things and respond to them. The graphic and narrative portions, and even potentially we could have some draft facades at that point and share those and show how those facades are how they work with the guidelines in order to arrive at those suggestions.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. And the other way is to say, no, come in right away before you've done a thing and just have an intake session. And that can be done physically, that can be done digitally. It could be done a combination of both. Yeah, or again, I put that back on you to give me a sense of what you think would be most useful. And then I'm probably, like, I didn't come into this meeting prepared to hand you a date for a visit, but once I know more about how you want to pace this and what is the best strategy, I can quickly get you an outline, Phil, with all of those ideas. Like, you know, we can get staff out there to document and measure and meet with key constituents, you know, in 1 or 2 weeks. You know, Rick can come out for such and such a time later on to review draft deliverables, or Rick could come out separately, or Rick could come out at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out where to deploy myself in all of this too. Or I could do some of these Zoom-based intake sessions with folks to get the ball rolling and for us to get some of a feel for the dialogue and what the priorities are and what the momentum is from sources in addition to yourselves.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? This is Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, good.
I can hear you, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not on video. Let's see. So my thought on this is that we should have, and I guess I think the village board, along with, I'm going to say, a half dozen at the most other key stakeholders, probably identified by the village board, should be part of a immediate or relatively, you know, like upfront meeting. And I guess it could be digital or in person, but I think that if we were able to do it in person, and it was timed with when, I'm not sure who, but staff is up here anyway, looking at the chosen properties.
Okay.
I think that would be ideal, because they still, you know, they need to be part of this. I think they will share some things that are unique to Malone that's worth hearing as far as your guys' perspective, just to kind of get a sense for where they're at as the leaders of the community. but just as important is to help them understand from a design professional why we're doing this. They get it, but the reinforcement's important, and we really are helping them take a pretty big step for Malone. That, you know, they're kind of going to be taking a step with their eyes closed as far as actually taking on design guidelines and somehow incorporating that into, you know, how they want to incorporate as a legal instrument. But so them feeling comfortable about it and being reminded why it's important and having that face-to-face, I think, is important. We wouldn't want, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to come up over the short term. In addition to that, I think we just, to Phil's point, I think we find a time when it can all be done in one day or a day and a half.
Okay.
I think we originally had ideas about doing a much larger stakeholder meeting or forum at the beginning. With pandemic, I don't see the need or actually the interest. I don't know if Phil or Marcy told you, we've had a hard time getting owners to be interested. So I don't think we need to do a big dog and pony show at the middle school auditorium. But you know, a 1 or 2 hour session with the village board and some key stakeholders, and then the remainder of the day with your staff, meeting with the owners for the facade studies. To me, that would be a pretty efficient day.
Perfect.
That, and maybe it turns into a day and a half, but you know what I mean, because you're coming from a long ways away. But
yeah, well,
and, it doesn't need to be. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm hearing you. I think I'm liking the way this is starting to take shape. So I'm just reinforcing that. I think that's a good mode, and we could kind of take care of the input and intake session, but also in a way, what you're saying is, you know, provide some upfront context as to how this is an important tool in the toolkit, and maybe even, you know, some inspiration about how it has helped communities. You know, once you can envision where this can take you, and you have the tools to help access the funds as well as to inspire the owners, and you have people start to visualize what that can be, it happens. The investment follows. And so I can tell that story.
They need to hear that story and get that boost, because as we get into this, and Phil, you correct me if I'm wrong, but when we get into this, there's going to be naysayers, and the village board knows where they're trying to go, and I think they will stick it out, but they're going to get some negative feedback. It's going to be pretty negative. This is just an opportunity for them to showcase their community to you and help them feel proud about the many awesome elements that do exist. And for you to do what you just said, for you guys to do what you just said, is put it in context, reinforce why it's important, and get them excited about the next few months. And then at the end, I think, or towards the end, I do think it's important to have a in-person session where you were talking about it before. The draft guidelines are done. There's some drawings, and you see how the drawings meet the guidelines, and you have a nice presentation, and then we have a week or two of letting everybody sit on it, and then if there's no changes, then great, we're done.
Perfect. No, that's good reinforcement, and that hews pretty closely to essentially to the outline that we had provided. So that's easy. I was simply, I kind of kicked things off with the idea that if things have changed or we wanted to, you know, shift where we spend time, that would be fine. We're used to that because that's how it always works. People write these New York Main Street TA grants based on what? Based on, you know, a theory of what their needs are. And then when you actually get started, you find out that the actual needs in the field can sometimes be different. So it sounds like in your case, you
I think the
hit
change,
it on the head.
there's one change, and I think the change is, I'm not sure if any of us have any interest. I'm not sure the community has an interest in some big, you know, at the school presentation and stuff like it's just not going to happen. We don't need to do it.
Right.
So, and
I feel like that workshop
the
could
village
essentially
board,
be, you know, that kind of slots in. When you, maybe that you had in mind the in-school presentation, I guess, in your RFP. In our mind, we've done those as anything from, you know, design charrettes when there's a specific thing to work on, to really more or less what you're describing now. You know, you got a steering committee essentially, which has representatives from the village board, the planning
I think
board,
that's what we do.
a few really key go-getter stakeholders, and we have a good conversation.
And we'll get that list.
Okay.
We'll get that list from the village board.
Okay. That's
over
great.
the next week or something. And as far as the village board is concerned, I don't think it needs to be aligned with a village board meeting. Phil, what day did they have their committee meeting? That might be a good day. Do you remember what day did we go up there? To their committee meeting?
It was either a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I believe. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Because that might be one way to do it, is to just do it in align it with a committee meeting day.
Yeah.
And that way it's not a 6 o'clock at night thing.
And if we did want to bring in other stakeholders or community members, we could always do some sort of a Zoom setup. I mean, we're still practicing social distancing. We're still practicing, or we're still under executive order, not to exceed 25 people. So there's always that avenue that I think we should consider.
Good point. Yep. Good point. Yep.
Yeah,
So we'll see
see
where the village board stands, and if we do see that need to grow the input list, then I say, yeah, I like that, Phil. Then we use Zoom as the outlet for that. Yeah. So perfect.
I'm sorry if
and
I'm being
go ahead.
Go ahead. I would say I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit on the China shop here, but I just wanted to be able to present the village board with some dates. Is there anything in the next few weeks that would not definitely work out for you and your team? And I understand if you need to get back to me at a later point. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just want to make sure that we're moving ahead.
No, just having time to absorb the conversation we just had, I can give you one window that I think would work for me.
Okay.
Now that I know that I would want to be there, as well as James and Larissa being there, I think for this kickoffs kind of steering committee conversation, I'd really want to be part of that. And I'm going to be actually in the area and could probably do the 28th or the 29th, if that ends up being a possibility.
Of July.
Yeah, that's so essentially not far. So you might say that's too soon, and that's fine. Then we can look ahead in August. But if that works, then that's a go. And I think I did check with James and Larissa before the call. Is that something that might be possible?
What did you say? It was 29th?
28th or 29th.
Oh, 28th or 29th.
That looks good
Okay.
from our end.
Well, let's make it work.
Make it work.
I mean,
if my staff can't be there, then that could
is,
be me, and they could follow up with the measuring and the documenting and the business owners, the building owner folks. But I could certainly for a sit down meeting with the group, that would be the best way to keep this thing moving fast, would be to try to tie it in with those dates.
Phil, let's go for that. Let's see if the village board or a subset of them at least could work on either one of those days. I like it. I'll get this going.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll start reaching out today.
Yeah, great.
Just to be clear, because I've heard a few different things, at that particular meeting, are we going to be asking the owners of the property selected to be present, or at least Zoom in?
That's a good conversation. Did you want to say something, Jeremy?
So I think we let the village decide who the stakeholders are, and then Rick, your team will have to you'll have to figure out if you're going to have enough team there to coordinate
Right.
the measuring and insight visits with those owners.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And definitely we're going to want to have one-on-one conversations with them. And in a way, those might be in part listen sessions for their goals and needs, and also a little bit of laying the groundwork for why we're there and what the possibilities are and how to get to the finish line. So we could have those as one-on-one conversations if those people don't end up in the room as part of the steering committee discussion. So I'd leave that to you and to the board. Yeah.
I think that's what you plan on, is that those are separate one-on-ones.
Okay.
There might be a little bit of overlap, but I suspect that it's pretty much one-on-ones. It's going to be a separate group. That would be my guess. That we do the steering, whatever we would call it, steering committee. But I guess I was just thinking that for the travel schedule and being efficient, if you guys were coming up anyway for a stakeholder meeting or whatever we call it, that timing, aligning that to do measurements and meet one-on-one with owners made sense. But if you're available on the 28th or 29th, I say we try to get that stakeholder meeting to happen no matter what. And then we work to fit whatever else around it that's practical on your end.
Great, thanks.
But I think you heard from Phil. Phil's happy to, Phil, you said it, right? You're happy to help try to coordinate stuff for that day once we know the village board's good.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Eric, do you have some sort of outline which you typically would do at one of these stakeholders meetings, just so I can share with the village board what they should expect and how they should prepare for this?
No, nothing off the shelf. Honestly, each conversation is different. We can work on one, get it to you. I think maybe one way to do it would be, I'm thinking just based on what you've said, there'd be several chapters, so to speak. One would be really focused on the design guidelines and their purpose, and even kind of a talk through of what we like to include and see what we're missing and what other areas we would want to cover. What areas, a lot of this is going to be asking questions and listening. I don't see this as a Rick presentation. I can certainly help guide the discussion, but I'd really like to draw people out into identifying elements that define the downtown, that define the character, architecturally, gateways, history, challenges, specific challenges, things that we can then touch on and really make sure we address. We can't do accurate design guidelines unless we really understand more about the context. So that's a bit more of an intake piece, but we can also talk about what we anticipate the sections would be that are more of the
No, that's
nuts
good. I
and bolts.
just want to give them a little bit more detail so they can come prepared, so we have meaningful conversation. Because if not, you'll probably have two speaking and everybody else just staring blankly. So I want to make sure they're prepared to give you the best information possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's a good idea, Phil. So you can reach out and try to get 28th or 29th nailed down with them, but you can then let them know that we'll be coming with an agenda. Mm-hmm. That's before that. Okay.
Yep.
I think that part of that agenda should be weather. I mean, I don't even care if it's raining. A little bit of a walking tour. That way we can. I just think those are fun and be a good chance for them. You guys can do it on their own, but it gives them a chance to talk about what they're really proud of, what they're not so proud of, and just have a little bit of a conversation. That's where I think that the most impactful discussion could be. So if we had a I don't know, a short thing at the beginning, maybe at the village office or something, and then just set out on foot for an hour, I think we'd go a long way towards getting them excited and engaged. Because they just like any downtown, like they understand the issues. Like they live there, they know what's not, like what bothers them. And I don't need them to tell us that, quite frankly. But I think it's always it's fun to hear them talk about what they're really proud of too, and I want them to feel excited that there's a positive trajectory for downtown, but that having design guidelines that reinforce the character of what made downtown Malone what it is a stepping stone towards that. I think I'm not sure they understand. I want to reinforce that connection, because they have to be able to reinforce that connection with the community, because the community has no idea. So we really have to help the board understand the connection on why the design guidelines are important.
Absolutely.
And you guys will walk down the street and be able to say, perfect example. This is why we're doing it right here, is so that this doesn't happen again.
Exactly. No, perfect. And actually, as you're talking, I'm even remembering that we do have, essentially, we have an outline of those kinds of questions that we in the past given to communities in advance, like a questionnaire. And then based on their answers, that's one intake session we've done. So we can assemble those kinds of questions and get them to you in advance for the agenda. And that'll work perfectly with a walking tour and a short gathering at the village offices. I like that.
Thanks for pointing that out, Phil. That's going to be, I think, having that agenda and some questions up front is a great idea. Good.
All right. Excellent.
This is exciting.
Yeah, we're happy. We've been, we were geared up in March, and then, as with so many things, we've been chomping at the bit, waiting for the moment to be right to get moving on it. So look forward to it.
Do you need anything else from us right now? Phil, you're gonna get them the contact info, right? Help make that connection with the owners.
Yes, I can send that out to them.
Good.
Yeah, anything you can get us like that. I'd like to know as much about the properties that we're going to be working on as possible. So we've often, that when I say dossier, what I kind of mean is, well, what's going on? Are there outstanding property maintenance violations? Is everyone up to date on their taxes? What does the person do? What is their, do they have a business on the first floor? Do they work out of town? If you have any history, and we can look at the historic district nomination probably for these things and get some history for the properties once we know them. If there's any photos that aren't things that we can just grab off of Google Street View that will help give us context, like if we're going to be looking at the rears and things, or things that have changed. But anything you can assemble, it's all value added. Whatever you can pull together and get our way will help prep us so that we can make best use of our time.
Okay.
That's really it. And then we'll get you an agenda so you can circulate that. We'll finalize a date. So we'll be probably talking early next week to do that, it sounds like. And I'm good.
Yep.
I think that's it. Anything else from
all right,
from anybody here?
Nothing for me. I think I have what I need to get this ball rolling.
Good. All right. You've got my contact information,
awesome.
Or will this all be through Marcy? Who's my point of contact? Is it still you, Marcy?
What I'll do is I'll loop all of us.
Okay.
Phil, most notably, who's from Malone and lives there, so he's really going to be point person. But I'll make email introductions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah, I think we're
Thanks,
good to go for
everybody.
now.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you
Have a great
soon.
weekend.
You too.
Yes,
Thanks.
look forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.